Ann Coulter, of course, best-selling author, a great columnist. Now her new book, Resistance is Futile. Great book, maybe her best ever. Resistance is Futile, already a big, huge bestseller, and you should get it, Amazon, or go to anncoulter.com. Ann Coulter, how you doing?
Great. How are you, Mark Simone?
Very good. I'm just reading an email from a listener. He said he went to get your book, Resistance is Futile. He went to Barnes & Noble. He said he had to go in the back, and it was in the history section.
Well, that's not bad. At least they had it.
Yes, but sometimes
better than usual, and this is why Amazon is taking over the world.
Yes,
they don't hide books.
This Barnes & Noble, he said they put the Ruth Bader Ginsburg like right in the front, like somebody's going to want this.
No, this has been a long-term problem for conservatives, and the same thing with syndicated columns, which is why whenever a bookstore goes out of business, I cheer. When a newspaper goes out of business, I cheer. They didn't have to be like this, and, you know, the fake news media might want to figure it out. A lot of things used to seem to be indispensable, like buggy whips and MySpace. You're not always indispensable, and all of this censorship isn't that popular. Something will come along to displace you, though it is admittedly difficult in the case of social media giants like Facebook and Twitter, especially Gab. You know, Gab was the alternative to Twitter that wasn't going to censor people. So they get their bank refuses to do business with them. Google won't carry them. The server pulls out on them. You know, it's one thing to say, well, if you don't like how Twitter or Google do business, just start your own. Well, okay, but do we have to lay our own internet lines? Do we have to build our own bank first?
Yeah, it's a bad situation, this censorship. Hey, you know, there's another thing. Harvard is in the middle of this scandal. They may have discriminated against Asians. They would do too much affirmative action. And they keep saying it's all about diversity. Nothing more important than diversity. We have to have diversity for our students. Yet 100% of the professors are far left-wing Democrats. How's that diversity? No,
exactly right. They never mean diversity of thought. They will have all creeds and colors. As long as you're all left-wing, we'll all think exactly the same, but we'll be different colors saying the exact same thing. No, they absolutely do not want diversity of thought. It's gotten so much worse under Trump. They seem morally justified to really aggressively censor conservatives from everything, from television, from their newspapers, from their schools, from everything. And, of course, engage in actual physical violence against conservatives. I loved that last Friday night the conservatives were fighting back with Gavin McInnes was speaking at the Metropolitan Republican Club, a fine club on the Upper East Side. I usually do my first book signing there because it's in New York, and I love them. And first, the club was vandalized the night before Gavin McInnes was speaking. Then a huge mob showed up, wearing masks and dressed in black as usual, not from the neighborhood, not Republicans, to inflict violence on people going to hear Gavin McInnes. But he had his Proud Boys out, and they fought back, and now the social justice warriors are whining and saying, oh, they hurt us, they hurt us. Yeah, I'll take Gavin's Proud Boys any day over the Antifa.
Now, you're not allowed to wear a mask while protesting. It's against the law, but police departments have got to start enforcing this law. They got to start arresting people for this.
Yes, that's prima facie scary and dangerous, and you are up to no good and don't want to be identified. There's a good reason for that. It began during, another group of Democrats when the Klan was beating up on first Republicans and then just generally all blacks in the South. Total overlap in Klan and Democrat membership. Not every Democrat was a Klan member, but every Klan member was a Democrat. The Klan was a little like Planned Parenthood that way.
Yeah.
So, as usual, history moves on, and suddenly they start saying, no, that was a Republican organization. Someday they will be claiming that the pro-lifers were Democrats.
We're talking with Ann Coulter. You should get her book, Resistance is Futile. Every time you write a book, it's a great idea. But then it turns out, like in the coming months after that, that is like the biggest thing. So same thing happened here. The resistance, a lot of people have said, as bad as it was, in the last few months, it just ratcheted it up worse than ever. Why is that?
Yes, it really has. Well, if they read my book, they'd know how to attack Trump properly, which would be Democrats should run on building a wall and restricting immigration in order to help the middle class. But I'm starting in the Clinton era, I would say. The Democrats used to appeal to blue-collar workers, used to care about the working class, used to be against unrestricted immigration, driving down wages and changing the culture, and, of course, being illegal in the case of illegal immigrants, which is not all the problem. Wages get driven down by legal and legal immigrants. In any event, around Clinton's time, the Democratic Party just moved to becoming a party of yuppies and immigrants, identity politics. The feminists and the angry grievance groups. But they completely gave up on regular Americans living between the coasts. So they can't do it. All they can do is to unite their base, is to keep screaming about white supremacy, racism, white supremacy. No, keep your eye on the ball. We hate white Americans. It's the only thing that unites these various disparate groups. I don't know if you saw Louis Farrakhan has apparently recently unleashed another gem. He said something like, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm anti-termite. And as you can see from the hothouse flowers who want to literally make a federal case out of being groped in high school, don't think it ever happened. This is Christine Blasey Ford, but even if it had, come on, we're talking about being groped in high school. This is not a rape. It's groping, and it's high school, and it's 30 years ago. So how is that group going to fit in with all the Muslims they're bringing in, who don't want women to drive, and women are subordinate, and here you're going to wear this sackcloth over your head. No, their groups really ought to be at one another's throats. I mean, whose jobs are being taken by masses and masses of low-wage immigrants? Well, obviously, any low-wage worker, but that's heavily Hispanics and blacks. That's why we have to keep hearing about racism, fascists. No, don't notice that you hate every other member of the coalition. Just keep your eye focused on you hate white people.
Yeah, if the Democrats had a real leader, one real smart leader, they would look at all the metrics over the last 2 years and say, everything we are doing isn't working. It's not hurting them enough. We got to switch tactics. Or
yes.
They'd get your book. Resistance is futile. You explain right in there why this doesn't work and what you should do. But there's no leadership in the Democratic Party.
Yes, well, they have been counting on, especially starting with the Clinton administration. That was kind of the transition period on the new waves of immigrants, being able to demagogue them. Many of them don't speak English. You can rally them with their angry grievance groups, and guess who gets to be the head of the grievance group? The people or the ethnic group, the people running the grievance groups. Obviously, anyone coming to this country comes from a less free country, many of them coming from authoritarian countries, so they're used to being pushed around, bossed, and told what to do. So they really are just counting on the wave of immigration to numerically outnumber American voters. That's clearly what Hillary was doing, and, we're about at the tipping point. It's not that far away. She did get more of the popular vote.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you want to read a great book, get Ann Coulter's book. It's called Resistance is Futile. If you find yourself every day saying, what the hell are they? Why are they going so crazy over Trump? Read this book. If you're one of these resistance idiots and you say, how come it's not working? Read the book.
Good tips there.
If you know one of these resistance idiots, you have a friend or somebody, get them the book and say, here, read this. I think this might explain why what you're doing isn't going to work. Resistance is Futile. You can get it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. I would suggest Amazon. It's easier.
It's very easy.
Click 2 buttons. It comes right to your house. But it's a great book. And Ann Coulter's column, it comes out tomorrow, right? New column?
Yes, and for the truly loyal fans, later tonight. It's a good one. It's an excellent example of it's a fake news autopsy.
Oh, good. So just go to AnnCoulter.com. You can get the new column before anybody else, and follow Ann Coulter on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. And Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us.
Good to talk to you, Mark Simone. Bye-bye.
Take care.